Captain Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Dawn, staring at the screen in front of him. The signal was weak, broken into pieces, but it was there. Someone was calling for help from a place no one was supposed to go. The void reaches. Even the name made people nervous. 3 civilizations had gone into that dark region of space over the past 1,000 years. None of them ever came back. The Galactic Council had declared it forbidden territory 200 years ago. Their rule was simple: stay away, ask no questions, forget it exists. But now there was a signal coming from inside. A cry for help. Hana walked up beside him, her tablet showing complex patterns of data. She was the ship's chief scientist, and she had been studying the signal for 3 days straight. Her eyes had dark circles under them, but they were bright with discovery. "It's definitely biological," she said quietly. "There are living beings out there, Captain. And they're trying to reach us." Dae-hyun rubbed his tired face. He was 53 years old and had spent 30 years in space. He had seen many strange things, but this was different. This was a choice that would change everything. Lieutenant Taemin turned from his station. He was young, only 26, with the kind of eager energy that made older officers both proud and worried. "Sir, we could reach the signal source in 4 days if we leave now." "We're not leaving now," Dae-hyun said. "First, we tell the Council." The meeting with the Galactic Council happened 2 days later. Ambassador Ji-woo presented their findings to the Great Chamber, where representatives from 40 species gathered. She was calm and professional, but Dae-hyun could see the tension in her shoulders. Humanity had only been part of the Council for 2 centuries. They were the youngest species, the newest voice, and most of the older species treated them like children who didn't understand how the galaxy really worked. The chamber was a massive sphere where delegates floated in their preferred environments. Some breathed methane, others lived in water tanks, and a few existed as pure energy contained in special fields. At the center floated High Curator Velmoth of the Vryn Collective. His species looked like massive reptiles with silver scales and 6 eyes. The Vryn had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. They controlled most of the Council's decisions. Ji-woo's voice echoed through the chamber. "The signal is clear. There are survivors in the void reaches, people who have been calling for help, maybe for decades. We have the capability to reach them. We have the moral obligation to try." Velmoth's deep voice rumbled through the translation systems. The void reaches claimed what it claimed. "This is known. The doctrine of preservation is clear. We do not venture into regions that have destroyed others. We do not risk more lives chasing ghosts." A delegate from the Dreamweaver species, a being named Isaiah, who looked like a large moth made of light, spoke up. "But if there are survivors, do we not have a responsibility to at least investigate?" "We have a responsibility to protect our people," Velmoth replied. "The humans are young. They do not understand the weight of our history. 3 times we have sent expeditions to investigate the void reaches. 3 times they have vanished. We learned our lesson. The humans should learn from our wisdom, not repeat our mistakes." Dae-hyun watched through the video link as the Council voted. Species after species sided with Velmoth. The final count was overwhelming. 34 against, 5 in favor, 1 abstention. The Council's decision was final. Ignore the signal, maintain the quarantine, move on. Ji-woo returned to the Prometheus Dawn the next day. She looked exhausted and angry. "They already knew," she said, sitting in Dae-hyun's office. "Some of them already knew there might be survivors. But their fear is stronger than their compassion." "What happens if we go anyway?" Taemin asked. He had joined the meeting along with Hana and the ship's chief engineer, Kyung-soo. "Humanity gets expelled from the Council," Ji-woo said. "Trade agreements collapse. Defense pacts end. We become isolated again, alone in our little corner of space." Kyung-soo, a quiet man who usually let his work speak for him, shook his head. "So we abandon people because we're afraid of politics?" "It's not that simple," Ji-woo said, but her voice lacked conviction. Dae-hyun stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars filled the darkness. Beautiful and cold and infinite. "I need to think," he said. "All of you get some rest. We'll meet again in 6 hours," but Dae-hyun didn't rest. He walked through the ship, through corridors he knew by heart. The Prometheus Dawn was an exploration vessel with a crew of 147 people from Earth. They were scientists, engineers, soldiers, and dreamers. They had left home to see what was out there, to learn, to help where they could. He found Corporal Bora in the training room, running combat drills with her Marine squad. She was tough, practical, and didn't waste words. When he told her about the situation, she stopped mid-exercise. "Sir, are you asking me if we should go? I'm asking what you think." She looked at her squad, then back at him. "My job is to protect this crew. Going into the void reaches is dangerous, maybe suicide." She paused. "But leaving people to die because it's inconvenient? That's not why I joined the service. That's not why any of us are out here." Dae-hyun called a crew meeting in the main assembly hall. All 147 people gathered. He explained everything. The signal, the council's decision, the consequences if they disobeyed. He didn't hide the danger or the political cost. "This is not a military vessel," he said. "I'm not ordering anyone. This is a choice. If we do this, we do it together or we don't do it at all." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Taemin stood up. "If no one else will answer, then humanity will." Hana stood next. Then Kyung-soo. Then Bora and her Marines. One by one, every person in that room rose to their feet. Not because they were forced to. Not because they thought it would be easy. But because it was right. Dae-hyun felt something tight in his chest loosen. He nodded slowly. "Then we go. Kyung-soo, prepare the engines. Hana, keep tracking that signal." Taemin, plot the fastest course. "Bora, get your people ready for anything." The Prometheus Dawn left Council space 12 hours later. They crossed the boundary into the void reaches while Ambassador Ji-woo watched from a council station, tears streaming down her face. She knew what this meant for humanity's position in the galaxy, but she also knew that some things mattered more than position. As the ship disappeared from sensors, moving into that dark and forbidden space, Dae-hyun sat in his captain's chair and thought about fire. Fire was dangerous. Fire could destroy. But fire also brought light to darkness and warmth to cold. Fire kept people alive. Maybe that was humanity's purpose in this galaxy, not to be safe and quiet and cautious like the others, but to be the fire that burned when everyone else was afraid of the dark. The signal grew stronger as they moved forward. Someone was out there waiting, and humanity was coming. The void reaches looked wrong. That was the first thing everyone noticed. Space was supposed to be black, yes, but filled with stars. Here the stars seemed dimmer, farther apart as if something was draining their light. Even the ship's light seemed weaker, struggling against a darkness that pressed in from all sides. Dae-hyun watched his crew work with growing concern. They had been inside the void for 2 days and strange things were happening. Sensors gave contradictory readings. Time felt stretched and compressed at the same time. The crew reported nightmares, vivid and terrible, about being slowly erased from existence. Kyung-soo was practically living in the engine room. The chief engineer had always been calm under pressure, but now worry lines creased his face. "Captain, the power systems are degrading faster than they should. It's like something is drinking the energy right out of the reactors. Can you compensate?" "I'm trying, but I don't understand what's causing it. The reactors are fine. The conduits are fine. But somewhere between generation and use, we're losing power. It just disappears." Hana called Dae-hyun to the science lab. She had charts and data projections covering every surface. "I think I know what this place is," she said. Her hands shook slightly as she pointed to her findings. "The darkness here isn't empty space. It's something physical. A type of exotic matter we've never encountered before, and it's consuming energy. Consuming it how? Like a sponge absorbs water. Every form of energy that touches it gets pulled in and neutralized. Light, heat, electricity, even the thermal energy from our bodies. That's why everyone feels cold. That's why the stars look dim. This matter is everywhere here, and it's hungry." Taemin looked up from his navigation console. "The signal is getting stronger. We're close now. 2 more hours at current speed." Those 2 hours felt like days. The crew moved through the ship quietly, speaking in whispers. Even Bora's tough Marines looked nervous. They were trained to fight enemies they could see and shoot. But how do you fight darkness itself? When they finally reached the source of the signal, what they found made everyone stop and stare. It was a station, massive and ancient, clinging to a dying star. The star looked sick, its light flickering like a candle about to go out. The station itself was beautiful in a sad way, built from materials that shimmered even in the dim light. "Life signs confirmed," Hana said. "Weak, but there. Captain, there are people alive on that station." Dae-hyun assembled a team, himself, Hana, Taemin, Bora, and 6 Marines. They took a shuttle across to the station, and with every meter they traveled, The cold seemed to grow worse. When they docked and opened the airlock, they found the interior was barely powered, just emergency lights casting long shadows. They moved through empty corridors. The station was huge, built for thousands, but their sensors showed only a handful of life signs gathered in one central location. When they finally reached that place, they found a chamber that took their breath away. Crystalline beings, each about 2 meters tall, stood in a circle around a small fusion generator. There were 12 of them, and they glowed with a soft internal light that pulsed weakly. When the humans entered, one of the beings turned. Its surface rippled with colors that the translation device in Daehyun's helmet struggled to interpret. "You came," the being said, its voice like chimes. "After so long, someone finally came. Who are you?" Daehyun asked gently. "We are Kalash. Or we were. Once our people numbered in the billions. We had cities on 100 worlds. Now we are 12. The last 12 of our entire species." Hana stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. "What happened here?" The Kalesh, who identified itself as Resonance of Dawn, told them a story of horror. 800 years ago, the Kalesh had been exploring this region when they encountered the hunger. That was their name for the exotic matter. It had appeared slowly at first, just a dimming of distant stars. Then it spread faster and faster, consuming everything. The Kalesh tried to fight. They built weapons, shields, tried to run. Nothing worked. World after world went dark. Billions of Kalesh died as the hunger drained the life from their sons and the energy from their bodies. The survivors fled to the station, built around one of the last stable stars in the region. They sent out a distress call, broadcasting it continuously for decades. "We believed someone would come," Resonance of Dawn said. "We believed the Galactic Council would send help. But no one came. Year after year we waited. Our star grows weaker. Our people fade. We are the last, and soon we will be gone too." "The Council knew you were here?" Taman asked, his voice tight with anger. "They must have. Our signal has been broadcasting for 73 years. Someone must have heard Daehyun felt sick." The Council hadn't just ignored a distress call. They had knowingly left an entire species to die, trapped in this nightmare place. He activated his communication link to the Prometheus Dawn. "This is the captain. Prepare to receive survivors. We're bringing them home." But as they began helping the Kalesh toward the shuttle, alarms started blaring. Kyungsu's panicked voice came through the comm. "Captain, we have a problem. Something big is moving toward us. The sensors can barely read it, but it's massive and it's coming fast." "The hunger has noticed you," Resonance of Dawn said quietly. "Your ship is bright with energy. It draws the darkness like light draws moths. You must leave now or it will consume you too." They ran through the corridors of the dying station, the 12 Kalesh moving as fast as their weakened bodies could manage. Behind them, the lights began to fail, one by one, darkness creeping forward like a living thing. Bora and her Marines took up the rear, firing their weapons back at the darkness even though bullets did nothing to stop it. The shuttle barely made it back to the Prometheus Dawn. As soon as everyone was aboard, Kyungsu pushed the engines to maximum power. The ship lurched forward, but the darkness followed. Tendrils of absolute black reached out from the void, touching the ship's shields. Where they touched, the shields failed. Energy simply stopped existing. "Engineering to bridge," Kyungsu shouted. "I'm rerouting everything, but we can't outrun this thing. It's too fast." Daehyun made a decision. "Cut all non-essential systems. Life support to minimum. Lights off except for bridge and engineering. Everything into the engines now." The ship went dark. 147 humans and 12 Kalesh held their breath in the cold and the dark as the Prometheus Dawn fled through the void. For 6 terrible hours, they ran, the hunger always just behind them, reaching, grasping, trying to pull them back into the darkness. Finally, they crossed the boundary. The moment they left the void reaches, it was like breaking through water into air. Suddenly, stars were bright again. Power returned to normal. The oppressive weight lifted from everyone's shoulders, but when Daehyun looked at the sensors behind them, his blood ran cold. The hunger hadn't stopped at the boundary. It had followed them out. It was still coming, spreading into normal space like ink and water. "Get me a channel to the Galactic Council," he said. "Emergency priority. They need to know what's coming." Ambassador Jiwoo appeared on screen from the council station. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Daehyun, you're alive. Thank God. But the council has issued a warrant for your arrest. You violated the quarantine and, Jiwoo, listen to me. The hunger is real, it's alive, and we just led it straight to inhabited space. Get everyone to safety. Evacuate the border systems. This thing eats energy, it kills stars, and it doesn't stop. The council has to act now. He transmitted everything they had recorded. Every sensor reading, every image, resonance of Dawn's testimony. As the data flooded into council systems, Daehyun slumped in his chair. They had saved 12 lives, but they might have doomed millions more. Hana put a hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing. We all did we? He asked. We brought this thing out of the dark. No, Resonance of Dawn said, approaching the bridge with slow, careful steps. The hunger was always going to leave the void eventually. It grows stronger as it consumes. Soon it would have been unstoppable. At least now there is warning. At least now there is a chance to fight. Daehyun hoped the ancient being was right. He hoped the galaxy would choose to fight instead of run. Because the darkness was coming, and this time, there was nowhere left to hide. The galaxy exploded into chaos within hours. 3 colony worlds went dark, their distress calls cutting off mid-transmission. The hunger was spreading faster than anyone had predicted, moving through space like a wildfire through dry forest. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Ambassador Jiwoo stood in the Great Chamber once again, but this time the atmosphere was different. Fear hung in the air like smoke. Species that had been calm and collected for thousands of years were now panicking. High Curator Velmoth's voice boomed through the chamber. This catastrophe is the direct result of human recklessness. They violated the quarantine. They disturbed what should have remained contained. I call for immediate sanctions against humanity. I call for their expulsion from this council and the arrest of those responsible. Jiwoo stepped forward. She had spent a sleepless night preparing for this moment. Before you vote, I ask that you watch something. The Prometheus Dawn recorded everything they found in the void reaches. Everything the council chose to ignore, she played it all. The dying station, the 12 surviving Kalesh, and most importantly, Resonance of Dawn's testimony about 73 years of unanswered distress calls. The chamber went silent as the recording showed the ancient being's words. We believed the council would send help, but no one came. When it finished, Jiwoo spoke quietly but clearly. You knew. Some of you knew there were survivors, and you chose to let them die. You chose silence over compassion, fear over courage. The hunger was always going to break free. All we did was give the galaxy a warning instead of letting it strike without notice. The chamber erupted. Species shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded humanity's punishment. Others called for Velmoth's removal. The council, usually so organized and calm, had become a storm of anger and fear. Counselor Isaiah, the Dreamweaver representative, spoke with a voice that cut through the noise. Fighting among ourselves solves nothing. The hunger is spreading. What do we do about it? That question hung in the air. What could they do? The hunger ate energy itself. How do you fight something that consumes the very weapons you use against it? While politicians argued, Admiral Sun-hee was already preparing for war. She commanded the human defense fleet from a battle station orbiting Earth. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, but her mind was sharp as ever. Get me everything we know about this thing, she told her staff. Energy consumption patterns, movement speed, any weakness at all. Dr. Yoonji, a young physicist who had been studying the Prometheus Dawn's data, came to her with a theory. Admiral, I think I understand what the hunger is. It's not a creature or a weapon. It's a natural phenomenon that someone amplified. Like taking a small fire and giving it fuel until it becomes an inferno. Can we stop it? Maybe. If we hit it with enough concentrated energy all at once, we might be able to destabilize its structure. But we're talking about massive amounts of power delivered in perfect synchronization across multiple points. It would require hundreds of ships working together with precision timing. Can the council organize that? Yoonji looked at the reports coming from the council chambers. The arguing had been going on for 12 hours straight with no resolution. I don't think so. Sun-hee made a decision that would change everything. She opened a broadcast channel, not just to human ships, but to every vessel in range. Military ships, civilian transports, trade vessels, even pirate fleets. Anyone with a ship and weapons. This is Admiral Sun-hee of the Human Defense Fleet. You've all seen the reports. The hunger is real and it's spreading. The Galactic Council is debating while worlds die. We don't have time for debates. Humanity is going to fight this thing. We're going to the front lines and we're going to hit it with everything we have. Join us or don't, that's your choice. But we're not running and we're not hiding. Not anymore. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships began changing course from dozens of systems. Not just humans, but others too. Young officers from species that had been told to stay out of it. Civilian captains who couldn't stand by while colonies died. Even some Vryn defying their own government joined the growing fleet. Within 3 days, Sun-He had assembled a force of over 3,000 ships. It wasn't anywhere near the size of the Council's full military, but it was something. It was action instead of words. The Prometheus Dawn, its hull patched and systems barely functional, limped to join them. Daehyun brought with him the Kalesh survivors and all the data they had gathered. Residents of Dawn worked with Yoonji, sharing ancient knowledge about the hunger that proved invaluable. We tried this before, the Kalesh said, showing them records 8 centuries old. We tried to fight with energy weapons. It only made the hunger stronger, feeding it more power to consume. But you never tried a coordinated strike, Yoonji said, thinking fast. You hit it in one place at a time. What if we surround it and strike from all sides simultaneously? The energy would have nowhere to be absorbed. It would create a cascade effect breaking down the exotic matter structure. That might work, but the timing would need to be perfect, even a microsecond off, and the hunger will simply absorb the energy like it always does. Back at the council, the arguments finally stopped when the first images arrived from the front. The hunger had engulfed an entire star system. 17 billion lives gone. Just darkness where light used to be. Velmoth looked at those images and something in him broke. His species had survived for 10,000 years by being cautious by avoiding risks, but he could see now that sometimes caution was just another word for cowardice. The humans are right, he said quietly. Then louder. The humans are right. We cannot debate this away. We cannot ignore it. We must fight. The council finally moved. They began mobilizing their fleets, coordinating with Sun-He's volunteer force. Species that hadn't worked together in centuries now shared tactical data and resources. The galaxy was uniting, but the question remained. Was it too late? Taemin coordinated the attack patterns from the Prometheus Dawn. Despite his youth, he had a gift for seeing patterns, for understanding how thousands of moving parts could work together. He created a battle plan that looked impossible on paper. 3,000 ships moving in perfect formation, striking at precise coordinates with microsecond timing. This is insane, one of the alien captains said during the briefing. Even with computer assistance, the margin for error is too small. Then we don't leave it to computers, Taemin replied. We do it together. Every captain watches their neighbor. We move as one. Like a school of fish or a flock of birds. Individual precision is impossible. But collective precision? That's what we do. The fleet assembled at the hunger's advancing front. It was like staring into an abyss that stared back. The darkness was physical here, a wall of nothing that ate stars and left only cold behind. Daehyun stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Dawn and opened a channel to the entire fleet. I know you're scared, I am too. We're about to face something that has killed billions, something that feeds on the very weapons we use to fight it. But we're not alone. Look around you. 3,000 ships from 60 different species. We're not running. We're making our stand here together. Sun-He took over the channel. All ships begin formation. Weapons charging. On my mark, we strike together. We only get one chance at this. Make it count. The fleet spread out surrounding a massive section of the hunger. Each ship took its position, weapons primed, energy cores pushed to maximum. In the command center, Yoonji monitored the energy readings, making final calculations. If this works, she said to no one in particular, we wound it. If this fails, we're just feeding it. Then we better not fail, Kyung-soo said from engineering. The Prometheus Dawn was barely holding together, its hull patched with emergency materials, but its weapons were ready. The countdown began. 10 seconds, 9, 8, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. 7, 6, 5 captains gripped their command chairs. 4, 3 gunners. Fingers hovered over firing controls. 2, 1, fire, Sun-He commanded. 3,000 ships unleashed their fury simultaneously. Energy beams lanced out from all sides, converging on the center of the hunger. The coordination wasn't perfect, it couldn't be, but it was close enough. The beams struck together, creating a cascade of power that lit up the darkness like a newborn star. For one eternal moment, nothing happened. The hunger absorbed the energy like it always had. Then it screamed. Not a sound, but a pulse of force that every living being felt in their bones. The exotic matter structure began to crack, to shatter, pieces of absolute darkness breaking apart and dissolving. Cheers erupted across the fleet. They had heard it. They had actually heard it. But the celebration was short. Yes, they had wounded the hunger. They had slowed its advance. But they hadn't killed it. And the cost had been terrible. Nearly a third of the volunteer fleet was destroyed, caught in the backlash of energies. The Prometheus Dawn took catastrophic damage. Its hull breached in a dozen places, emergency force fields the only thing keeping the crew alive. As rescue ships moved in to evacuate the damaged vessels, Daehyun looked at the wounded darkness ahead. They had proven the hunger could be hurt, but winning would take something bigger, something impossible. The medical frigate was crowded with the wounded. Daehyun lay in a recovery bed, his left arm in a regeneration sleeve breathing through tubes that helped his damaged lungs. Around him, crew members from a dozen species recovered from the battle. Some would live, some wouldn't. The price of their small victory had been written in blood and loss. Hana visited him daily. She looked exhausted, having spent every waking hour studying the data from the battle. "We heard it," she said, sitting beside his bed. "We definitely heard it. But the hunger is already healing itself. It's slower now, moving maybe half as fast as before, but it's still spreading." "How long?" Daehyun asked, his voice rough. 3 months, maybe 4 before it reaches the core systems. The Council is evacuating border worlds, but there are billions of people out there. We can't move them all in time. Dr. Yoonji had been working non-stop since the battle, barely sleeping, pushing herself to find a solution. She finally came to Admiral Sun Hee with a plan that sounded like madness. "We need to create a weapon powerful enough to collapse the hunger's entire structure at once," she explained, surrounded by holographic calculations. "To do that, we need energy equivalent to 100 stars, focused through a single point and released in less than a second." Sun Hee stared at her. "That's impossible." "No, it's just really, really difficult. The Council has the technology. Different species have pieces of it. The Stone Voice can manipulate stellar matter. The Dreamweavers can coordinate across vast distances. Humanity can improvise and adapt. If we work together, truly together, we can build it." "How long would this take?" 2 months to build the focusing lens. Another week to charge it. Then we fire once, one shot. If it works, the hunger dies. If it fails..." She didn't finish the sentence. Sun Hee brought the proposal to the reformed council. Velmoth had stepped down from leadership after the revelations of his species' complicity in hiding the hunger. A new coalition government was forming, with representatives from multiple species. The old hierarchy was breaking down, replaced by something messier but more honest. The proposal sparked immediate debate. The resources required would drain thousands of systems. The risk was enormous. If they failed, they would have wasted precious time and materials that could have been used for evacuation and defense. Then, Elder Thazim spoke. The Stone Voice representative was ancient beyond measure, a living mountain whose words carried the weight of 10,000 years of observation. His species rarely involved themselves in galactic politics, preferring to watch and record. "I have seen this pattern before." His translated voice rumbled like distant thunder. Species face extinction. They debate. They calculate risk versus reward. They choose the safe path and die slowly, or they choose nothing and die quickly. Only rarely does a species choose the dangerous path, the path that might save them. The humans choose that path. Perhaps they are foolish, or perhaps they remember something we have forgotten. He paused, and every being in the chamber waited. "The Stone Voice will commit our stellar engineering to this project. We will help build this weapon. Because fire that does not spread will eventually die. And I have grown tired of watching species choose death over risk." One by one, other species joined. Not all of them. Some refused, some fled to distant corners of the galaxy hoping to escape. But enough joined. Enough to try. The galaxy transformed into a construction site. The project was named Prometheus Protocol, after the ship that had started everything. Thousands of systems contributed resources. The Stone Voice reshaped stellar matter into massive collectors. The Dreamweavers created quantum communication networks. Humanity brought their gift for improvisation, solving problems that no one had answers for. Captain Haiyan Wu commanded the colony ship New Spring, leading evacuation efforts ahead of the Hunger's advance. He was older than Dae-hyun, with white hair and gentle eyes that had seen too much suffering. Every day he made impossible choices about who to save and who to leave behind. A young man named Sung-min worked on the New Spring as a volunteer. His homeworld had been consumed by the hunger. He was 19 years old and everyone he had ever known was dead. But instead of breaking, he had chosen to help others. He coordinated refugee camps, distributed supplies, and somehow kept hope alive in displacement centers across a dozen worlds. "How do you do it?" Hyun-woo asked him one day, watching as Sung-min organized food distribution for 5,000 refugees from 3 different species. "How do you keep going after losing everything?" Sung-min looked at the refugees, seeing their fear and exhaustion. "Because giving up means the hunger wins twice. It takes our homes and our hope. I can't stop it from taking the first, but I can fight to keep the second." Meanwhile, Bo-ra had been promoted to major and given command of security for the Prometheus Protocol construction. Her Marines, now a mixed force from multiple species, guarded the massive project from those who would sabotage it. There were such people. The Obsidian Dominion, a militaristic empire that had refused to join the coalition, launched attacks on human colonies. They claimed humanity's recklessness had doomed the galaxy and that humans needed to be eliminated before they caused more harm. Bo-ra found herself fighting a war on 2 fronts, protecting construction sites from the Dominion while preparing defenses against the hunger. She was tired, running on stimulants and determination, but she never stopped. "They're afraid," she told Sun-hee during a strategy meeting. "The Dominion, I mean. They're terrified, and fear makes people do terrible things. They need someone to blame, and we're convenient. Can we fight them and the hunger at the same time? We don't have a choice. So yes, we fight both." Dae-hyun recovered slowly. The Prometheus Dawn was beyond repair, reduced to scrap and spare parts. His ship, his home for 20 years, was gone. But his crew survived, most of them, and they scattered to other assignments across the coalition. Taemin joined the Prometheus Protocol Coordination Team, his gift for pattern recognition proving invaluable. Kyung-soo helped design the massive energy conduits that would channel stellar power. Hana continued her research, now working directly with Resonance of Dawn. The ancient Kalesh had shared something important with her, records of where the hunger originated. Deep in the darkest part of the void, there was a dead star system. Ancient technology rested there, built by a species long extinct. That technology had created the hunger. "If we can reach it, we might be able to shut down the hunger from the source," Resonance of Dawn explained. "But the journey is one way. The technology sits in the heart of the void, where the hunger is strongest. Any ship that goes there won't come back." Dae-hyun, hearing this, knew what he had to do. He began quietly assembling a team. Volunteers only, people who understood they wouldn't return. Hana was the first to sign up. Then Taemin. Bo-ra tried, but Dae-hyun refused. "You're needed here," he told her. "The galaxy needs protectors. I need you to be one of them." As the Prometheus Protocol neared completion, the galaxy held its breath. The massive lens spanning a light-year of space hummed with barely contained power. Thousands of stars fed their energy into it, creating a weapon that could destroy or save everything. But success depended on timing. They had one shot. If they fired and missed, or if the hunger absorbed the energy, there would be no second chance. And even if the Prometheus Protocol worked, it would only wound the hunger. To kill it permanently, someone had to reach that ancient technology and shut it down at the source. Dae-hyun stood before the coalition leaders and presented his plan. A small strike team would penetrate the void while the Prometheus Protocol fired. The weapon would weaken the hunger, creating a brief window. In that window, the strike team would reach the source technology and deactivate it. "The mathematics are clear," he said calmly. "The strike team won't survive. The energy release will sterilize everything within 100 light-years of the source point. But it will work. It will end the hunger permanently." Ji-woo, watching via hologram, had tears streaming down her face. She had known this moment would come. The galaxy demanded sacrifice, and humanity had never been good at refusing that call. Elder Thazim spoke again. "There is no other way?" "No," Dae-hyun replied. "This is the only path that guarantees the hunger dies." The chamber was silent. Then Velmoth, the former High Curator who had opposed humanity from the beginning, stood. "I misjudged your species," he said quietly. "I thought you were reckless, dangerous, too willing to risk everything. I was wrong. You're not reckless. You're brave. You see impossible odds and you try anyway. And that, I think, is what the galaxy needs most right now." The Coalition approved the plan. The Prometheus Protocol would fire in 7 days. Daehyun's strike team would launch in 6. Humanity's fire was about to burn its brightest one last time, hoping it would be enough to drive away the darkness forever. The ship was called Phoenix Rising. Built from salvaged parts and cutting-edge technology, it was small, fast, and designed for one purpose: to penetrate deeper into the void than any vessel had survived before. Its crew numbered 7. Daehyun, Hana, Tae-min, Resonance of Dawn, and 3 volunteer Marines from different species. They launched quietly without ceremony. There was no parade, no speeches, just a simple goodbye to people they loved, knowing they would never see them again. Sungmin came to see them off, this young man who had lost everything but chose to keep fighting. He hugged Hana tightly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for showing us how to be brave." The Phoenix Rising crossed into the void while across the galaxy, thousands of systems made final preparations for the Prometheus Protocol. Commander Jae-sung coordinated the massive effort from a mobile command station. He was an old friend of Daehyun's, steady and unflappable, the perfect person to conduct the most complex operation in galactic history. "All systems reporting ready," he told Admiral Sun Hee. "Stellar collectors at maximum charge. The lens is stable. Communication network is synchronized. We can fire in 36 hours. Sun Hee looked at the tactical display. Everything depended on timing. The Phoenix Rising had to reach the source, deactivate the ancient technology, and transmit the shutdown codes back to the Coalition. Only then could they fire the Prometheus Protocol. If they fired too early, the hunger would simply absorb the energy. Too late, and the strike team would be killed before completing their mission. Inside the void, the Phoenix Rising struggled forward. The darkness here was overwhelming, physical, trying to crush the tiny ship like an ocean crushes a submarine that dives too deep. Kyung-soo had designed the engines himself, incorporating Kalesh technology and human improvisation. They held, but barely. Taemin sat at the navigation console, his neural interface connected directly to the ship's systems. He could feel the pressure of the void pressing against their shields, searching for weaknesses. 30 hours to the source, he reported. If we don't lose any more speed, they lost speed. The hunger had noticed them, recognized them as the ones who had wounded it. Tendrils of darkness reached for the ship, pressing against shields that sparked and flickered. The crew worked frantically, rerouting power, compensating for failures, refusing to stop. Hana studied the ancient technology as they approached. The records Resonance of Dawn had shared showed a massive structure orbiting a black hole. A species called the Architects had built it millions of years ago, trying to stop entropy itself, trying to save the universe from its eventual heat death. They created the hunger to consume entropy, she explained to the crew. It was supposed to extend the universe's lifespan. But something went wrong. The technology became autonomous, started consuming everything. The Architects died, their creation still running, still feeding, growing stronger every millennium. "Can we actually shut it down?" one of the Marines asked. "The Kalesh believe so. There's a master control system. We input the shutdown codes and the technology deactivates. Simple in theory. And in practice? In practice, we have to survive long enough to reach it." Back in Coalition space, Kyung-soo worked with Dr. Yoon-ji on the final calculations for the Prometheus Protocol. The lens was the largest structure ever built by galactic civilization, held together by force fields and sheer determination. Stars across thousands of light years fed their power into it. "If my calculations are off by even 1%, Yoon-ji said quietly, "we could trigger a chain reaction that destroys half the galaxy instead of saving it." "Then your calculations better be perfect," Kyung-soo replied with a tired smile. No pressure. The Phoenix Rising reached the source after 32 hours of hell. The ancient structure was massive, beautiful in a terrible way, wrapped around a black hole like jewelry on a corpse. The hunger was strongest here, its presence so overwhelming that the ship's lights barely penetrated a meter into the darkness. Daehyun suited up with Hana and Taemin. They would enter the structure while Resonance of Dawn and the Marines held the ship as long as possible. They didn't waste time on long goodbyes. Everyone knew what came next. The structure's interior was a maze of passages built for beings that thought in dimensions humans couldn't comprehend. But the Kalesh records guided them, and Hana's brilliant mind solved puzzles that had been waiting millions of years for someone smart enough to understand them. They found the control room at the structure's heart, where the black hole's gravity was strongest, where reality itself felt thin and strange. A massive interface covered the walls, built from materials that hurt to look at directly. "This is it," Hana said, her voice shaking with awe and terror. "The master control for the hunger." Resonance of Dawn had given them the shutdown codes, mathematical sequences learned from fragments of architect technology the Kalesh had recovered centuries ago. Taemin began inputting them while Daehyun monitored the hunger's response. The darkness noticed what they were doing. It attacked the Phoenix Rising with everything it had. Alarms screamed across the ship's systems. The Marines fought a desperate defense against an enemy that couldn't be killed. Resonance of Dawn channeled every bit of their remaining energy into the shields, keeping them alive for just a few more minutes. "Captain," one of the Marines called, "the ship's breaking apart. We don't have long. Hold the line," Daehyun ordered. "Taemin, how much longer?" "Almost there. The codes are processing. The system is responding." But there was a complication. The shutdown would destabilize the black hole. The energy release would be catastrophic, spreading out in a wave of annihilation that would sterilize everything within 100 light years. They had known this might happen, but hoping and knowing were different things. Commander Jae-sung, Daehyun transmitted back to the coalition. "We're activating the shutdown now. You'll have a window of approximately 12 minutes when the hunger is vulnerable. Fire the Prometheus protocol exactly then. Not before, not after. Exactly then." "Understood," Jae-sung replied, his voice thick with emotion. "It's been an honor, Captain. The honor was mine." "Take care of them, Commander. Take care of the galaxy we're saving." Taemin entered the final sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the structure began to shake. The ancient technology was powering down, protocols dormant for millions of years finally ending. The hunger screamed. Every living being in the galaxy felt it, a pulse of rage and fear and pain. The exotic matter structure began to collapse, unraveling, the darkness pulling back from systems it had consumed. "Now," Daehyun shouted into the comm. "Fire now!" Across the galaxy, Commander Jae-sung gave the order. The Prometheus protocol fired. A beam of pure stellar energy brighter than 1,000 suns lanced across space. It was visible from every inhabited world, a line of light cutting through the darkness. It reached the collapsing hunger and struck like a hammer on glass. The exotic matter shattered. The hunger dissolved, its structure breaking apart at the molecular level, pieces scattering into normal space where they were harmless. The darkness that had threatened to consume everything was simply gone, evaporated like nightmare at dawn. But the victory came with its price. The black hole at the structure's heart destabilized exactly as predicted. Energy exploded outward in a wave of absolute destruction. The Phoenix Rising, already crippled, couldn't escape. Daehyun held Hana's hand. Taemin closed his eyes. Resonance of Dawn's light pulsed one final time. They faced the end together, knowing they had succeeded, knowing their fire had burned bright enough to drive away the darkness. The explosion consumed them, the ancient structure. Everything within 100 light years, and then silence. The galaxy mourned. Memorial services were held on 10,000 worlds. The crew of the Phoenix Rising were honored by every species, their names recorded in every language. They had burned brightest when darkness seemed eternal, and the entire galaxy would remember. Ambassador Jiwoo stood before the rebuilt Galactic Council, no longer a council of hierarchy, but of equals. Humanity had earned its place not through age or power, but through sacrifice and courage. "They believed something we had forgotten," she said, tears streaming down her face. "That the answer to darkness isn't to hide from it or debate it. It's to light more fires." The coalition that had formed to fight the hunger chose to remain united. Species that had barely spoken before now worked together, rebuilding worlds damaged by the darkness, creating a galaxy based on cooperation rather than fear. Sung-min, the young refugee, helped found the first truly integrated colony, where humans lived alongside Kalesh, Stonevoice, Dreamweavers, and dozens of other species. It was messy and difficult and beautiful. They called it New Dawn Bora. Promoted to general, established mixed-species military units that served not under the old council hierarchy, but under a new charter dedicated to protecting all life. The galaxy's first truly united defense force, Kyung-soo and Dr. Yoonji converted the Prometheus Protocol infrastructure into stellar engineering stations, helping restore suns that had been dimmed by the hunger's touch. They taught their techniques to engineers from every species, spreading knowledge instead of hoarding it. And Admiral Sun Hee, tired but satisfied, watched as a new generation trained at academies across the galaxy, not just humans,